Hi, and welcome to another episode of Career Reshaped. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Pauline.
And today we have Marta Afaria with us. She is a certified somatic, symptom, and chronic pain specialist and the creator of the 12-week Revive and Thrive program, a nervous system-centered framework that helps high-achieving professionals resolve stress-related symptoms like burnout, IBS, fatigue, migraines, and chronic pain. With a background in events management and a personal journey through burnout, Marta now supports clients worldwide to rewire their nervous system, restore resilience, and reclaim joy in their lives. Thank you for joining us, Marta.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to start off by asking you, what's one physical or emotional sign someone is living outside their nervous system's window of tolerance?
Right. There are a few signs. I would say that the most common one is when people start experiencing insomnia, when you wake up at 3 a.m. and you cannot sleep, or if you are not having insomnia yet. So when people are working, like when you are really irritable, when you start to get annoyed by little things, I often say to people, it's never about the little things. There are things underneath. It's often because your cup is getting full. And then you start getting, like that levels of irritability, and you just feel out of balance. So if you are feeling constantly tired, there is a difference between that level of exhaustion. There is fatigue, but like when you sleep and you wake up and you are dragging. So those are all signs of a nervous system that is dysregulated.
I feel really seen right now. Oh no.
This is I got like bells, alarm bells.
I want to finish this now. I don't want to know anymore. You can help us right now, which maybe you can. Can you share a 60-second somatic reset someone can do at their desk? And maybe we could do it right now together.
Yeah, like what we can do, especially like if you are in the office and there is a lot of people there, it's I feel like a lot of people like to be discreet about it. So the best way, if you are at your desk, just take long, deep breaths and like bring to the diaphragm, bring to the belly, and breathe slowly.
We'll be back in 10 seconds. This is a friendly reminder that this is a part 1 of a part 2 series with Marta. So if you don't want to miss out and learn even more, then subscribe and follow.
And as you do, the idea is that you don't look at your screen, but you start scanning the rooms. It's a technique, it's called orienting. So what you do, you just bring your gaze and just have a look around very slowly. And you can look up or down and right and left. And really pay attention to colors, pay attention to details. And as you do, breathe really deeply. What that does, it kind of tricks the brain a little bit, because when if there is a threat, when we feel fearful about something, if there's something going on, often the focus of our attention goes into that thing. So we become very narrow. So for example, if you are working on a project and you are tense and maybe it's something that you're trying to figure out, or you are experiencing some setbacks and things are not working, so your attention is going to be really focused and you are here. So that signals the nervous system that there is a threat, so that activates the sympathetic nervous system. So what the orienting does, it signals that everything is okay, because we only gaze and look around and and take our time when things are peaceful, when things are nice. So if you do that and just take 5 minutes to breathe deeply, abdominal breaths, and look around, and you can tell yourself, it's fine, just decompress. That is something that can do in the office.
Through your nose, does it make a difference? Because I know when I did a breathwork class, they said, breathe through the nose but out through the mouth. I'm not sure, does that make a difference if it's through the mouth, nose, or?
It depends on what you want to achieve. So breathwork, there are many different types of breath work. They will do different things, but essentially you have 2 types of breath work. One that it's going to help you to release the excessive amount of carbon dioxide And those ones are, like rapid breathing. So if you do this rapid breathing, that you inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, as you were describing. So those ones are really good to boost energy. They will give you energy. They will help you with mental clarity. Whereas the slow breaths, breathing in and out through the nose very slowly, those ones are to calm down the nervous system. Those ones are the ones who will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Another very common slow breath that it's especially popular in the yoga studio is the Nadasodhana, which is the nostril alternation. So you breathe in through one nostril and you exhale through the other. So that has a calming effect on the nervous system as well.
Interesting. Already so many things exciting to try.
Yeah, I've only breathing. So whenever I felt anxious, I would do that. But it's good to know like alternative options. And it seems a lot more peaceful than box breathing as well.
Yeah, and you can do when you are anxious, or you can just start your day with a practice, with a somatic practice or a breathwork practice, because that is going to help you not to feel so stressed, not to feel so anxious. So it's better to do before you're anxious than when you are in that state, because sometimes depending on what you're going through, it's very difficult to switch off, but the practices can help. You do 5 minutes and you begin to relax.
I like that. It's a good way to start the day.
What are the most common invisible symptoms that high achievers normalize but really shouldn't?
Right. So there are some behaviors that, can lead even to burnout. And those are things that sometimes are even mistaken by a personality trait. So for example, perfectionism. Some people might say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, as if this was part of their personality, but it isn't. It's a subconscious loop, it's a trauma response. So this was the child that was being praised only when they were doing everything right, and could have many reasons, and no one size fits all. Like, I don't like to say, oh, this is necessarily because of that. So we need to look individually, but often perfectionism, control, people who go a lot into micromanaging, or they find very difficult to delegate. So sometimes it's the people that have the perception, the unconscious perception, that they need to solve everything. They don't like to ask for help. For example, there is the hyper independence, and that leads to that. It's people that, oh, no, I can handle. But then again, your cup is getting full and you are not asking for help until the point that you collapse. Overproductivity, like this term people don't use very often anymore, which is the workaholic. Yeah, we live in such a hustle culture that praises so much, the ones that arrive earlier and leave late and are constantly there working. Some people can actually handle so many hours, but there is a form of distraction as well, because by doing that, you don't need to sit with your emotions. You don't need to sit with what is coming up. I've seen people going through deep grieving periods, for example, even in the face of the loss of a loved one, which is something very justifiable for you to take some time off. And some people are like, no, I can't. I need to keep going because I don't want to feel the sadness. I don't want to grieve. I just need to keep going.
They tell themselves that it's going back to work is the best thing for them, to keep their mind off of it so they don't have to think about it. I personally know people that have said those words. No, work is the best thing for me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I understand on one hand, because I would also understand not wanting to think about it, but I also believe the importance of feeling it and getting through it.
My auntie is a good example of that. She's one of those people, like high achiever and constantly doing. And I remember when my cousin unfortunately passed away in a motorbike accident. I feel like for her it was just so, as a mother, if you have kids, right? Losing a child is possibly the worst thing in the world that can happen to a human being. But she opened a business like right after. Wow. And I said to her, I was like, you are escaping. And she's like, no, life goes on. And now she has fibromyalgia.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it started a few months later because that has nowhere to go and it's too deep. But, no.
For me, though, sometimes it's hard to concentrate on anything else other than the problem.
Yeah.
Like even at work, I can't focus. I can't even enjoy the things that normally calm me down if I'm that upset. It's also hard to be distracted at the same time.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, it's good to find a balance. It's good to allow yourself time, but obviously, yes, you cannot become obsessed about it as well. So of course you need to focus on other things as well. But it's very important to allow the emotions to just arise. And it's not easy to go through them. I feel like, in the healing journey, this is the hardest part. It's always to feel our emotions. Because you can do the somatic practice, the nervous system work, and you can do the breath work and tapping and shaking. There are so many techniques and they are very helpful, but ultimately you need to process your emotions because the nervous system reacts simultaneously, immediately. So that is the central core of the healing journey, is to process your emotions.
Yes, it's probably because if you keep running away from it, it's eventually going to keep catching up to you. Some of our clients, they have to leave their job for whatever reason, and it's an emotional exit, and they're so upset. It's like a knee-jerk reaction that they have to quickly find something else or get something else that's going on. It's as instead of processing what's happened, calming down, thinking about the next step in their career, it's no, I got to quickly solve this problem and get another job. And I feel that they're never going to be 100% fulfilled because they're making decisions based on emotions rather than actually feeling what is right for them in the, I don't know, what's the word, Natasha?
Absolutely. So they keep out of alignment. So they are, that's what happens when you take decisions based on fear. Yeah, so what is running the show is like, okay, I cannot have this space. I need to work. Yeah, I think like most of us were conditioned that success comes through hard work.
Yes.
We never really learned that alignment and when, like to listen to the body, what feels good in the body often is what is pointing us into the right direction. The body is something that measures everything. Like sometimes we look, when you get that feeling, I knew it, I knew there's something wrong, I cannot put my finger on it, but you kind of know it. Yeah. And that is the body response. But many times we completely ignore it and we go into the logical mind that is racing fear and like, no, but I have bills to pay and there's that and such and such. And that's exactly what you said. Then the person after a while is not really fulfilled, but it's not because, when you had a chance to pause, you just didn't. You just jumped straight into the next thing.
Right. So you touched on it a little bit. You started to talk about your auntie and the fibromyalgia. So could you explain the connection between the nervous system and the chronic symptoms that can come up like that, or IBS or migraines or anything along that line?
Yeah, sure. So what happens is, what people need to understand about the nervous system is, we have the sympathetic one and the parasympathetic one. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight one, and the parasympathetic is the rest digest, right? And ideally, we should spend 70% of our time in the parasympathetic nervous system. It's called rest digest for a reason, because your body needs to be calm for those things to happen properly within us, right? But what is happening to us is that our sympathetic nervous system is really active most of the time because we, as humans, we don't respond just to the immediate threat. We project. So anxiety, for example, it's a projection of the mind to something that can go wrong. So it's not something that is threatening you right now, but it's the possibility of things going wrong. And we start ruminating about things, or when you have an argument with someone and the tendency to blame and to be right, and then you just replay that in your mind over and over again. So all of those things make our sympathetic nervous system be active. But what that does is that your blood flow starts to go to the muscles and not to the brain anymore, not to the organs anymore. You have a spike and you just release a lot of cortisol, a lot of adrenaline, and those hormones, they are not bad for you, they are necessary. So you produce cortisol every day in the morning to wake up, for example. The sunlight allows us to produce that. But when that is excessive, it starts to mess with your entire body chemistry, and that will lead to inflammation. And inflammation is the cause of 90% of all disease. So when that happens, if you are constantly in the sympathetic nervous system, your immune system is gonna slow down. Like so many things happen in your internal pharmacy, in your body chemistry, that this eventually leads to disease. And another thing is, like, each of us will tend to tense a different part of the body. So obviously when we are in high alert, you might be aware of it or not, but you are contracting. Yeah, you start experiencing a lot of muscle tension. And some people, for example, like pelvic floor, I was talking to a doctor the other day, and she was saying, yeah, people do this unconsciously, because some people, when they feel their emotions, is the lower part of the abdomen that contracts, and they don't even notice. But it's an unconscious contraction that it's happening there. So if that organ is being constantly receiving that contraction, so there is not enough blood flow, everything gets blocked there, and then it leads to disease.
Wow.
It's scary, actually.
But it all makes sense. It actually really, because the body really is quite, I don't say magical, but everything leads into everything, and it is affected in every single way. And the really good doctors that I have had, Western medicine even, always say stress and gut. Like, you got to figure out what's going on there, fix that first, get that balanced, and then you can go and expand further. And especially those in, naturopaths and kinesiologies. And I even had my daughter speaking with a speech therapist recently. Not that she has an issue with her speech, was to do with her jaw and her teeth, but she was one, and she even said, first thing, get the gut sorted. From the gut sorted, it will help with nasal. With nasal, then it will help with everything else around the face. And it's all connected.
Yeah.
Impressive.
A lot of skin conditions are related to the gut, for example. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I say that to people, if you have digestive problems, then, okay, first look into diet. Because obviously if your diet is not good, you need to start through the diet. But when you have a clean diet, and the problem persists, then it's already a sign that the problem is not diet, but the problem is the nervous system. Because, again, rest, digest, but if that is too active, you are not going to digest properly. The digestive system begins to fail if we are constantly in a state of stress. And people eat even, in front of the screen, which is not good for them, but it's so normalized in the corporate world.
I just think that a lot of the symptoms that you described, I think, let's just say you take it to a doctor, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. They kind of dismiss it a little bit. They do blood work, like, your blood work's fine, you're fine. You're not fine. And then you start to think, okay, well, what else could it be? And I know that I'm like, well, look, I'm tired. I've got dry skin. I'm irritable. I don't sleep well at night. I must be going through perimenopause because I'm 42 years old. That makes sense. And then you talk to someone else, like, well, you're a bit young for perimenopause. Well, what else can it be? And I am always stressed. Like, I'm a very anxious person naturally. I always worry. I'm always in my head. Never do I think that any of these symptoms are related to my nervous system. Never to consider that, because stress has become such a normal part of my life that I actually don't know what it would be like not to be stressed anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I can relate, Pauline, because I used to struggle with anxiety as well, but sometimes it's just so normal that you don't even realize. It took me years to realize that I had an anxiety problem. I just I wasn't even thinking about that. You get on with life and you are working, and, we get used to stress. And, when we are this person, like I have always been like this. Yeah. So, it's not that you are an anxious person. Again, let's be careful how we frame that, because you are putting that in your identity, but that's not who you are. Anxiety is just it's a learned behavior sometimes. Sometimes it's even something that we inherit from our parents. So, for example, if you have like a mother that is very controlling and she's anxious herself, the child feels, and then you start to be kind of, worried about things as well, because you learned that. Anxiety can be a trauma response as well. And then, and that's why sometimes it's start, like people start to experience all sorts of symptoms like early in life, because they have been anxious since they were teenagers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we've been raised by the same people. Grandmother is very
with everything, like, no, like everything's, so I think, maybe that we could have picked that up from her. So
definitely the very first thing you had said earlier was about, then there's something little that sets you off. And that's where I'm at. Something little it shouldn't have set me off. It should have been fine, but because of all the big things. And I guess it's something you also touched on earlier about fear, and the fear of this or the fear of that. So I guess the question is, why do people like we were talking, people in good roles, why are those driven people, why do they often ignore their body signals? How can they start listening without fear of missing out on something?
I feel it's starting to pay attention, because, like when I said, if you're snappy, if you feel really irritable about things, then because when you are in that state, right? So it's just kind of acknowledging, you say, ooh, I'm stressed. I need a break. So it's because we are either feeling good or we are feeling bad, right? We are always feeling something. And, but listening to the body is that, for example, like sometimes, how many times you've had enough, but you kind of know, I want to finish this and I'll push through. But if that is not feeling good anymore, you might not make the right decision, or, like the thing that you are writing or that you are working on is not going to work. So it's good to start paying attention. It's like, okay, my level of productivity for today, it reached a peak, and it's better to stop and return later. Or depending on how people are, maybe they need a proper break from work, from life, because it's not only work, but depending on what is going on at home, we bring that to work too, and vice versa. Yeah. So it's a matter of paying attention to your reactions.
I know some people actually feel guilty if they're not productive. So if they do decide to take time off, even if it's a weekend and they don't do anything on the weekend, they feel guilty, like, I just wasted all this time. I should have, And when my response is that it's not a time wasted if you enjoyed it and, you got to relax. But how do they switch the mentality, or, reframe it in their minds to actually allow themselves to calm down and rest, and it's okay if they don't complete the task today? How do you...
That is the tricky part, because sometimes they are unconscious responses and we are not really aware of what is driving. We have our beliefs, and many times we are not aware of the beliefs that we hold. So, for example, the guilt that comes with resting, it's often two things. But like, again, no one size fits all. It could be something else, and we always need to investigate. But one is the belief that, if I don't work hard, I won't succeed. That is a big one. Because imagine, how can you stop, if you think that stop means failure, right? So first you need to understand what is going on, what the belief is. Or some people have associated resting with laziness. Yeah, if you grew up with people saying, don't be lazy, you are just sitting there doing nothing. as if that was a problem. Yeah. So if there is this conditioning around being lazy, because lazy as well is another trait that people tend to put on personality. That person is lazy, but that is not personality. Laziness is just when you don't want to do it. And it could be for many reasons. It could be because you're tired. It could be because it's out of alignment. It could be for many reasons. But if people don't want to be perceived as lazy, they will keep carrying that guilt. And that's why therapy sometimes is the solution, because in a therapeutic environment, you are going to start decoding that. And you are going to figure out, oh, that's why I have so much resistance toward resting. But the more you pay attention and the more you become aware, and the self-inquiry as well, okay, why am I feeling guilty around this? Where does it come from? So then perhaps you can start. So the more awareness you bring to it and the more permission you give to yourself to pause, to rest, the better. Those conversations alone can be helpful, because if the person has this belief ingrained, by listening to this conversation, they go like, maybe what I believed my entire life, it's not exactly the way that it is. And for, beliefs don't change overnight. You need repetition. And sometimes you've been holding something for a very long time, and now you start to listen to different concepts. And it takes a bit of time to integrate. When there are things running on a subconscious level and you try to change, often you experience resistance, and that is normal. So it doesn't happen overnight, but you can reprogram your mind. You can change the narrative. But the first step to it is always awareness.
Especially when there's so much noise. The people around you with their preconceptions of that's lazy, or if you don't hustle or work hard, you fail. But then you've got the other side of social media where everyone's on social media, everyone's listening, and then people coming on like, well, if you're not working 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, you're not going anywhere, you're not going places. And people start to believe that. They're like, yeah, maybe I should be working harder and longer.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because even with wellness, and this is something that I'm bringing awareness to as well, of course it's good to have a morning routine. I have a morning routine, and, it's great. But wellness shouldn't be another thing on your to-do list. It should be something that, gives you pleasure, something that you can fully relax, because now there is this idea with all those biohacks, and people talk about the breath work or the intermittent fasting. And there is, like we call the 5 a.m. club, people who are waking up at 5 a.m., the cold plunge and all that, which is not bad. But then if that just becomes another hustle, like I need to wake up at 5 a.m. and maybe your body's that days doesn't want it. Maybe you need more resting, but then now I must do all of those things if I am to succeed, because I need to boost my productivity and da. So we need to find balance. And that's our human tendency of wanting a specific method. We want a structure, we want a solution, but things are not black and white. It's so much more nuanced. And that's why the relationship that you have with yourself and learning to listen to what your body really needs is so important.
So with that then, what is one daily habit that someone could immediately do to shift out of that mode, like out of a survival mode or out of a I need a hustle mode? What's something that you could suggest for them to start implementing now that is not too scary?
I feel like especially if it's this person that feels the need to be constantly busy, then just remove one item of that to-do list and pay attention to how it feels. Allow yourself, allocate time for doing nothing and notice how that feels. If it feels good or if it feels guilty, how are you experiencing that? So if it feels good, that's great. You just enjoy. But if you are experiencing guilt, that's when, maybe, like I have been programmed in a way to hustle, not to rest. And what are the consequences? So how can we keep productive and effective in what we do, but also in a way that we care for ourselves and we slow down, because it's important. And even if you think about productivity, like the best ideas often come in the pub, right? It's when we have downtime, it's when we decompress, when we unwind, that
talking to friends, having ideas, chit-chatting.
In the hustle mode, when you are really trying, when you try really hard, often it's when the answers don't come. It's often when we relax that things start to happen.
Yes. Some people it happens when they're sitting on the toilet. Their bright ideas come.
In the shower, apparently.
In the shower.
In the shower.
Mine's on the toilet.
I'm not editing that out.
So through, what we've learned about you, what does the term bracing mean in somatic terms, and how does it show up subtly in someone's life?
We spoke a little bit about that earlier today. The bracing is the unconscious contraction. Yeah. So I was having this conversation with this doctor. So she specialized on pelvic floor, and she's a surgeon, and she was telling me how difficult she finds to teach, her clients to actually breathe, to start get more aware of the pelvic area. It's an unconscious contraction. So for example, like if you are tense, some people, you might feel like the shoulders, or it doesn't really matter. Each of us will contract a different part of the body, and often we are contracting and again, not paying attention to it, not realizing that we are doing it. So it's just an unconscious response.
You mentioned earlier about the stomach, so it could be anywhere. The contraction could be anywhere in the body.
Could be anywhere. It's different for everyone. We know that certain emotions might lead to certain organs, and in my experience that is true, but not 100%. Again, each case
everyone's
is
unique.
different.
Everyone's different. It's very true. And I guess when someone might tell you, because you mentioned before, therapy and all these different things, and what if someone said to you, I've tried everything and nothing works? What would you say to them?
What I would say is that first, I think you need to understand that healing is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. And different therapies will work on different layers. We have bodies. We have the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, the energetic spiritual body. And different therapies, they will work in different aspects, right? So for example, if the person has done talking therapy is very important, especially if you are completely clueless about psychology, you have no idea why you behave in a specific way. The talking therapy, for example, is going to give you a lot of insights. You are going to become aware. And awareness is 50% of the journey. But awareness alone is not going to do the job, because, you can be aware. And that was my case for a long time, after psychotherapy. I was like, okay, fantastic. I understand now, my mother issues, but what do I do with that? How do I heal the deep emotional neglect? How do I heal, what that caused me? How do I do that? And that's when you, for example, like what I do with hypnosis is a lot about allowing that space and going back into the childhood memories that created the emotion, that created those associations, that created your belief system. So you begin to reframe. Someone that has tried, I've tried Reiki. Reiki is amazing to work in the energetic body, but then off you go and you feel better. But then if you don't work on your mind, if you don't work on your belief system, that is going to vanish, that it's going to go. But it's not because it's ineffective, but it's because we are complex, and sometimes you uncover one layer of the healing journey and then there's another layer. So it's not that it didn't work, but perhaps you are in the process of healing. And especially with chronic disease, when people, I've tried everything, but perhaps if you just change one thing, which is the fixing mode, which it's another thing that we study with the nervous system. When the person becomes hypervigilant about their symptoms, for example, there's something wrong and I need to fix. Once you stop fighting against and you start loving it and you start listening to it and understanding it, it shifts. So sometimes it's, we think that when there is something wrong with the body, we need something complex. We need something, it's, if I just take the pill or if I just do this or if I just do that, it's going to fix. And sometimes it's simpler than you think.
Very good answer. I like that. It's a great answer.